Welcome to yet another FPL video. Now, so much has been announced today, so what I'm going to be doing in this video is kind of breaking down the announcements and what that means for FPL teams, then talking a bit about my situation before showing you the updated best free hit team you can make. Now, there's obviously going to be changes in the team now compared to the best free hit video I made the other day. Why? Because now Spurs have Fulham instead of Aston Villa, so that kind of changes the complexion and maybe the structure. And a few of you have been telling me maybe don't go for double Spurs because I did have Son and Kane in that draft. And now I think it's going to be a mainstay in most teams. Now everyone's going to be wanting to get Son and Kane in because of that great fixture, which is much better than Aston Villa. So I'll be talking about all of it. And it all started with the news that the Chelsea versus Fulham game for Gameweek 19 would be moved from the Friday at 8 p.m. to Saturday at 5:30. Now, this was kind of talked about for maybe a week or so, that this kind of change in the schedule would allow Fulham to play on a Wednesday against Spurs, which obviously was a fixture the other game week, but it got postponed due to a COVID outbreak at Fulham. Now, because Aston Villa had a COVID outbreak recently at their training ground with at least 10 players, I think, first team players having COVID-19, and against Liverpool they fielded basically their under-23 teams and their under-23s manager. Because of that, now they're not going to have a fixture in Game Week 18 and their fixture against Spurs was postponed. So that allowed Spurs versus Fulham to slot in on the Wednesday. But obviously for Fulham to have a turnaround of 2 games and then they would have to play Chelsea 2 days later, that would be even more unfair than it is at the moment. So they changed that fixture to the Saturday. So all of that was to facilitate the rescheduling of fixtures, with Villa being postponed and with Spurs still playing in Game Week 18 but playing a fixture that they should have played already, but because of COVID-19 they haven't. And what that means for FPL teams, Spurs will still play in Game Week 18, but Aston Villa will blank. So if you have Martinez, Grealish, Watkins, all these players, they're going to blank in Game Week 18. And to be honest, if we're looking further ahead, in Game Week 19, it's not like the fixtures are great anyway. They've got Everton and Manchester City, but it's not looking too good because a lot of them, who knows what the kind of implications are going to be long term. Will they be ready for Game Week 19? And they're only going to have a few days really to kind of prepare for those games. And they're not probably going to be at their normal level. So it's a really difficult situation. And that's how COVID is at the moment. It's such a volatile situation. And in terms of my situation, I went from having 7 players for Game Week 18. So I had Son, Kane, Bruno and Cancelo, which I still do, and Calvert-Lewin, and also Grealish and Martinez. But the news today has eliminated 3 players. So Martinez and Grealish obviously are going to blank now, as I discussed just now. But there's also news of Calvert-Lewin sustaining a hamstring injury, and he's going to be out for 2 weeks, it is expected at least. So he's definitely missing the Wolves game in Game Week 18. And that means in my case, and I have a similar team to quite a lot of you, I'm only going to have 4 players for Game Week 18. So I went from trying to save my free hit, and I was quite comfortable with it because if obviously I had those 7 players and maybe I took a -4 to get De Bruyne and Stones in, I would have 9 players, and it's just a simple way to kind of navigate it. No need to free hit. But now with 4 players, I think I just have to free hit. And so the team I'm going to show you very shortly is what I'm most likely going to be free hitting to. There's a few kind of variations that could happen, and I'll be explaining all of that. But yeah, in my case, I think a free hit is definitely on the cards, and definitely for a lot of you as well. And this has changed things. So what you see here is the updated free hit team, and I've got a different keeper, I've got different defenders, and yeah, like I said, the Spurs fixture change. Aston Villa, despite how good Spurs have been defensively this season, that Villa game is not, one that you would want a Spurs player in, or defender, should I say. But now with Fulham at home, they are so likely to get a clean sheet, probably the most likely of any team. And you just have to get a Spurs defender in. So the kind of doubts I have, or the variations, before I talk obviously about the kind of big hitters and maybe some big topics like Rashford versus Sterling and stuff like that. Manchester United. Now, I have been discussing them, and I showed people like Maguire and Wan-Bissaka that you can get to kind of navigate Game Weeks 18 and 19 and beyond. And obviously bear in mind with Maguire, as I've said in previous videos, he is 1 yellow away from suspension. So if you're free hitting, it's fine. There's no problem. You can still get him in. But long term, if you're wildcarding or trying to get a United defender in for a few games at least, probably try to avoid Maguire. Try to go for Wan-Bissaka. And Luke Shaw is someone that I have suggested to all of you, but he's actually kind of flagged on this game, and he always kind of rotates with Tellers anyway, so it's a really difficult one with Luke Shaw, despite how good his price is, and he offers better value than the other 2 I mentioned. Luke Shaw is probably someone you want to avoid. He's also injury prone in general, so that's something to keep an eye on. But in terms of United defenders, the ones to look out for on a free hit, Maguire, Wan-Bissaka, or have De Gea in goal. Now, definitely don't double up on Man United defence. Now, just one simple stat that will probably put you off having one United defender anyway. They have not kept a clean sheet away from home this season, and they score a lot of goals away from home, but they also concede a lot. And De Gea, for example, he's conceded 21 goals this season. And yeah, why do I have him in this team? Well, if I'm being honest, despite how good Arsenal have been in the last 4 games, I'm just not sure about doubling up on Arsenal defence. Having one, I think, is enough. And then you look at the rest. Doubling up on Spurs defence, you could do that, but then Son and Kane, if you want both of them, you can't. Obviously the limit is 3 players for each team. Otherwise, I'd probably have double Spurs defence. I'd have Lloris, I'd have Dyer, and I'd try to make money elsewhere. And in terms of budget, actually, which is kind of always a hot topic when you obviously make these kind of videos, I've obviously got nothing remaining with all these players in, and I might have more money than some of you. But what you can do is find alternatives. So maybe instead of Tierney, you can go for Holding, for example. And if you have more money, you can go from Stones to Diaz. There's stuff like that. And there's different ways you can go about it, of course. So Kane to Lacazette, for example, although that's not probably ideal now with how this fixture is for Kane and Son. But still, there's different ways you can go about it. You don't have to just obviously copy the formula or the team that you see on screen. Just gain ideas from it. Maybe there's some players here that you haven't really thought about. Maybe like Eric Dyer, who has never been discussed really before. Obviously now this fixture change, but now he's going to be in a lot of teams. Now, in terms of defence, I do have Tierney in, who I did discuss in my last best free hit video, but he wasn't in my original starting 11 for the best free hit team. He was kind of an alternative. Now, in terms of Arsenal defence, he's probably the standout. There's also Leno and Holding. I would not really recommend anyone else. There is Bellerin, but I think Tierney is the standout, and he's created the most chances of any defender in the Premier League since December. So this guy has been on it. Even in the FA Cup, he got an assist against Newcastle, and he created 3 or 4 good chances for a lot of players, including Reece Nelson and stuff like that. But yeah, Tierney, a quality player, and he's been showing it. And definitely worth it on a free hit. Going long term, I'm not too sure about having someone like Tierney. He is 5.4 million. That is quite expensive. But for one game week, especially with Palace at home, I do think he can be a great asset. And then the double City defence, it's the same as last time. Not much has changed there. Now, obviously, having double City defence means it's either De Bruyne or Sterling in your midfield. And some of you will want to double up on that. And that's fair enough. But based on what I've seen this season, City are more likely to keep a clean sheet than to score 3 or 4 with De Bruyne and Sterling hauling. That's not to say it's not going to happen. Maybe both of them will happen. No one knows at this point. But I just have more confidence in double City defence. And also, let's say, for example, I decide to get rid of Stones and get someone else. Maybe another Arsenal defender, another Man United defender, etc. I'm not too confident on doubling up on one of those defences, especially Man United, who away from home, they've been poor. Like I said, they have not kept a clean sheet away from home. So double City defence is your best bet. And it's kind of, you shouldn't worry too much. And obviously, if they don't keep it, that's going to be a big blow. But players like Cancelo, a lot of attacking potential, can maybe get some assists regardless. But yeah, I'm more inclined for double City defence if you're asking me. But if you really want Sterling and De Bruyne, then that's fair enough. You could change it around a bit and you can get Holding. That would probably be my recommendation. Get Holding and Tierney and maybe get Cancelo in your defence if you want to double up on City attack. But then obviously you would have to kind of find sacrifices elsewhere. It's really difficult to have De Bruyne, Sterling, Bruno, Son and Kane. You're going to have to kind of find some compromises there. But in my opinion, having double City defence is the best. I'm not sure about Man United. I might not even go for De Gea. What I might do is get Lloris instead. And instead of Dyer, I might go for Holding and maybe go 4 at the back and have double Arsenal defence, which is really risky. But then again, I just don't trust Man United defence at all. But here it's a bit more balanced. And then Darlow, who is someone I have been talking about before. Why I would be put off him is because the Newcastle-Sheffield game, despite how poor Sheffield have been this season, I'm just not too sure about whether Newcastle will keep a clean sheet because Newcastle are quite poor themselves. And also, Steve Bruce, the comments he's made recently about Darlow and Dubravka, the kind of battle they have going on for that number 1 spot, not really filling me with confidence to go for Darlow. He did say that, either of them really could play and that they're both great keepers. So not a really... imagine getting Darlow and he doesn't even play and you don't have any backup there. It's just not ideal. So just go for someone nailed. I think the best goalkeeping options this week are De Gea, Leno, and the standout one is Lloris. But that means no Reguilon, probably no Dyer. unless you're not going for one of Son or Kane, but in my opinion, they are must-haves. And yeah, speaking of Dyer, he's the most nailed Spurs defender. There is Reguilon, who you could go for, but he does rotate sometimes with Ben Davies, so not a particularly easy one there. But Eric Dyer is just nailed. He can get 6 points. He's probably not going to get much more than that, but you'd rather have 6 points than maybe 1 or 2 or 0 for not playing. So Eric Dyer is probably what I would go for. Mitchell is just, the fifth defender, kind of budget enabler, and he can maybe come in, and you never know, he could do something, but yeah, he's mainly just on the bench. So I think the defense is really solid, and although I'm not really confident on Man United defense, I just think having one United defender and kind of leaving it there is fair enough, and they could still do it, Just because they've never kept a clean sheet this season away from home, it doesn't mean they never will. They will at some point. Will it be this game? Who knows? Because Burnley have been decent recently. We'll just have to wait and see there. And I already told you, I may go for Lloris in goal and Holding in defence instead of Dyer. That is a possibility, and I'll let you guys know, obviously, before the deadline. In terms of the midfield, not much has changed. So De Bruyne has to be in it, in my opinion, and Son definitely now is a must-have. And then Bruno Fernandes, yeah, you just have to have those three. And in my case, I only have 2 of them without the free hit. I don't have De Bruyne in. I'd have to take out Salah for that. But Rashford, he's someone that you can add to your team. And if you don't want him, maybe you could go for Sterling, but you have to find money elsewhere. But other than that, I wouldn't really look elsewhere, really, for midfielders. And Rashford, although Martial has been posting better statistics, Rashford has been getting more points. And yeah, I just think he can do really well. And having him and Bruno Fernandes, or Bruno Fernandes, whatever. I just seen some really weird pronunciations of him. But yeah, having both of them, I think, is enough cover for Manchester United. Martial is another one you can go for, but then again, it probably means you might not have Kane. You would probably have to go elsewhere other than Lacazette. And I would really like to have Lacazette for this game week, but I would probably rather have this structure in midfield and have Wilson and Kane up front. Kane is a must-have this week, I think, with his fixture and all of that. But yeah, it's a difficult one because everyone has different budgets. Some of you might not really want Rashford, so you'll probably downgrade him to a cheaper midfielder. Let's say you actually just start Saka and you'll have maybe a budget 5th midfielder, 4.5 million midfielder, whatever, maybe Neto instead, and that will allow you to upgrade Wilson to Lacazette or something like that. And that's fair enough, and that's something I could do, but I just think this is probably the safer option to go for. And it also allows you to get maybe Holding in your defence as well, or Leno, depending on how you go. Remember, obviously, 3 players from one club is the maximum you can go for. But really, De Bruyne, Bruno, and Son, I've talked about them a lot in my last best free hit video. And like I said, De Bruyne and Fernandes were always going to be must-haves this week. So there's not much more to say about them. They're 2 of the greatest captaincy options. But what I will say is that because of Fulham now being Spurs' fixture, Son and Kane are entering the captaincy decision mix. And in terms of who you should captain, that's a really difficult one. And it's something that I'm going to have to be thinking about if I do activate the free hit, which is 90% likely at this point. Because, yeah, Son and Kane can just do really well. But then De Bruyne and Bruno, just not too sure. De Bruyne, he has blanked a lot this season. And although his ceiling is very high, he is more likely to probably blank than the other 3, which is maybe why I might not captain him, which does sound crazy, but I might just captain Bruno, Son or Kane instead. But I will be thinking about that. And Saka, the good thing about the team I've built here, and obviously some of you might not have this budget, but if you do have enough, the good thing about this team is that you could pretty much kind of compete or have a competition here. So you'll be starting Stones, Tierney and Cancelo for sure, and you'll be starting De Bruyne, Rashford, Bruno, Son, Wilson and Kane. You'll be starting all of them. But what you have here is a bit of a dilemma here. You could start either your 4th defender in Dyer or Holding, depending on who you go for, or Saka. So that's a good headache to have. And because, in my opinion, Spurs are more likely to keep a clean sheet than Saka getting an assist or a goal, I might just go for Dyer. Saka's ceiling is definitely higher. There's no doubt about that. And if you look at his recent scores, they've been phenomenal. And he is definitely capable of this. But on a consistent basis, he is still really young. And goals may come from other places. Aubameyang did get a goal recently. And there's also obviously... Well, there's other players. I'm not going to say Willian, he's awful. But there's Lacazette, he's the most likely to score. Martinelli, he would be, but I think he is injured for this game, unfortunately. There are other sources of goals in this Arsenal team now, which obviously a few months ago or a few weeks ago wasn't the case. So Saka maybe could be your first substitute, but it ultimately depends on you. If you think Saka's going to do really well, then start him, and then you can bench Dyer, and he's a good player to come off the bench. But what is good about this team is that you have depth, and if someone does miss out from your defenders or midfielders or attackers, you have someone coming in. And then Mitchell would be your second substitute and Brewster would be your third. Not too much to think about there, but with Darlow kind of not being secured, I would not go for him. Lloris is the standout, but if you want someone else because you have a Spurs defender, then go for De Gea or Leno, definitely. They would be the best ones. And in terms of attackers, Kane is a must-have. There's not much more to say. It is Fulham. And Wilson, I'm not too sure. I don't like Newcastle's attack, and although they created some good chances against Arsenal in the FA Cup, they just couldn't take them. I think Callum Wilson would have done so, but yeah, Newcastle are just so poor offensively, and in terms of, you know, touches in the box and stuff like that, and all these attacking stats, they are bottom or right down there. So that kind of puts me off, but Callum Wilson is the shining light in Newcastle's season, and he has blanked a few times, but he is fairly consistent overall, and it is Sheffield, so you could expect some points there. And he is still one of the standout options. But if you don't want to go for him and you have enough money, go to Lacazette, go to Martial. Lacazette would probably be my favourite, and I would like to have him. But in my case anyway, I would probably have to downgrade Rashford or someone like that to facilitate that move. And yeah, Neto and Lacazette instead of Rashford and Wilson is another alternative for you. And there are different ways to go about it. But let me know what you think down in the comment section below of this team. What would you change? And do you prefer a double City attack, De Bruyne and Sterling, over Stones and Cancelo? Let me know. And do you think Lacazette is a must-have? There are a lot of different players that you can go for this game week. And yeah, in my case, with Aston Villa not having a game week, with Calvert-Lewin having an injury, it complicates things for me, not only in game week 18, but also in game week 19. But there are different ways to go about it. And I don't know why I sounded like that there. But anyway, and there are alternatives. You know, there are players that I didn't even discuss in this video, like Gundogan, like Foden, who have been doing so well for Manchester City recently. You could go for them, but in my opinion, having double City defence is probably the best way to go, and having De Bruyne. That's just my opinion. That doesn't mean you should do that as well. They could be fantastic punts, just like Neto could be, who could really change your free hit week from maybe kind of average to a really good one, and you can go up in the ranks a lot. Because some people, although it may seem like everyone's free hitting, that's only in the Twitter community or in the YouTube community. There could be a lot of people that are not going to free hit, and they're trying to save it on some, you know, kind of, you know, dead teams that players are not even, you know, changing their teams anymore. So you could get a real big rank boost by free hitting to a team like this. And I think triple Spurs is definitely the option. You could go for Reguilon, you could go for Lloris. Dyer is also another one who you could obviously see in this team. But there are different ways to go about it. And if you have any suggestions or alternatives, let me know. I'm all ears. But if you enjoy this video, subscribe. It really helps out the channel. Smash the like button. That also helps the channel even more. And comment down below all your thoughts. It really not only helps out the channel, but also it sparks discussion between the community and sparks ideas between me and you, and how we can improve our FPL teams. But thank you for watching this video, and I really appreciate all the support, and I'll see you next time.